Okay, and welcome back to Murfreesboro Rock School, helping kids one power chord at a time. This is the third video in our section on reading rhythms. This is a part of our music theory course on our online video library. We left off, we had covered whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, how long those notes last, how many beats or how many parts of a beat that those notes get. Now, we need to dive into another aspect of rhythm. So far, we've been talking about when to play, which notes to play, how long to play them. But just as important in music as the notes that you play are the times that you don't play. And in music, we have what's called rest. And rest are what tell musicians when and how long to not play. So let's go ahead and dive straight in and get a few examples up here. Let's go ahead and put in a quarter note. So we're going to throw a quarter note in on beat 1. That lasts the entire beat. Well, let's say that we don't want the musician to play on beat 2. So what we're going to do is exactly what came in here. This little squiggly line, this is called a quarter note rest. That means don't play for a beat. So we've got one beat here, and then we have the beat where we don't play. So this, you would play a note for a whole beat, and then you wouldn't do anything for a whole beat. And now we're on to beat 3. So let's say that we're going to go ahead and put in, let's say, some eighth notes, or an eighth note, we should say. So we're going to put an eighth note on beat 3. Oops, that jumped in the wrong place, sorry. There we go. We have an eighth note on beat 3. Okay, but then I don't want anything on the second half of beat 3. And while I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and put some 16th notes in too. So we're going to do a 16th note, and nothing, another 16th note, and then nothing. All right, great. So here we go. On beat 1, we have a quarter note. On beat 2, we have a quarter note rest. We don't play anything. Now on beat 3, we have an eighth note. This is important. Before, we had talked about how two eighth notes connected together with that bar at the bottom. I guess actually I should probably go ahead and pull that up. So let me do that for you real quickly. We're going to go ahead and, oops, say delete that, delete that, delete that. And now let's put in here two eighth notes that are connected to each other. How does that sound? So we've got an eighth note here and an eighth note here. Notice the two eighth notes, when they're connected, have the bar at the bottom. But we want to go back to our 16th notes. When the eighth note does not have another eighth note next to it, a rest, it's not going to connect to the rest because you don't play during a rest, that bar kind of breaks off. We call this the flag. So just like two eighth notes had one bar at the bottom, an eighth note by itself has one flag. Now, this little symbol here, this little kind of incorrectly pointed check mark is an eighth note rest. So that means don't play for half of a beat. So we're going to play 3E and then not play on the and. Now lastly, our 16th notes, just like two 16th notes connected together had two bars at the bottom, our 16th notes, when they're alone, have two flags. And as you could imagine, kind of following that same process, our 16th note rest have two of these little checks on them. So this tells us don't play for a fourth of a beat. So here we've got 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and okay, so let's listen to the piano, which will sound better than me singing it. Here we go. Notice how instead of every note lasting until the next note, we have these nice little breaks that add a real nice musical touch. Okay, so that's the bulk of understanding rest. The only other thing to throw in there, when you have a whole note rest, when the entire measure is empty, you've got this little black bar that sits down and hangs out below that second line from the top. That means wait 4 whole beats. Then the half note rest, which we also have not talked about, we put a half note in. Notice that bar sits on top of the middle line. So this is our half note rest. And then without anything, this is our whole note rest. All right, so whole note, half note rest, and jump in here and put a quarter note in. That's our quarter note rest. Jump in and put an eighth note in. That's our eighth note rest. And that's our 16th note rest right there. All right, that covers rest. And stay tuned for the next session. It should be our last lesson on rhythm. And then we get to start diving into different notes. So thank you very much. Be sure to visit murfreesbororockschool.com for a ton of other videos, great information, and some wonderful programs. Thank you very much.